Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ahlan wa sahlan, guys. My name is Liaquat Zaman. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day, enjoying yourselves. Alright, so this is Mukhtasar al-Qudoori, guys. I hope you guys have been watching the videos attentively. Alright, so we are now going through. The first thing that we do is we break down the words. Okay, so try to understand what the words are saying. So, fil mali, mal means wealth, ribh means profit, yashtari means to buy, ataqa ya'tiqu, it means to free, taqa, rule it as, ishtara, to buy, mudarabah is silent partnership, ribh is profit, zadat, to increase, qima is value, yazman, you have to compensate, then you got nasib, share. So all these words are already done, I don't need to go. Yas'a is to work, and then dafa'a, to give, mudarib is the entrepreneur, mudarabah is silent partnership. Okay, all this. See, a lot of these words are repeating themselves, so I don't want to spend too much time in repetition. Okay, so thuluth is a third, 1/3 is called a thuluth. In Arabic, nisf is half. And then you have rizq, razaqa, yarzuqu, it means to sustain or to give sustenance, rizq. Rabb al-mal, okay, we done that. So this is sixth. Alright, tarkeeb now. Let's check out tarkeeb. So, in kana fil mali ribhun, ribh is going to be the ism of kana. فَلَيْسَ لَهُ أَنْ يَشْتَرِيَ مَنْ يَعْتِقُ أو يُعْتَقُ عَلَيْهِ فَإِنِ اشْتَرَاهُمْ ضَامِنَ مَالُ أو مَالَ مفعول به مضاربته. وإن لم يكن في المال ربح جاز أن يشتريهم فإن زادت قيمتهم عتق نصيبه منهم ولم يضمن لرب المال شيئا ويسعى المؤتق. مؤتق okay, اسم مفعول. مؤتق لرب المال في قيمة نصيبه مضاف إليه. And then you have إذا دفع المضارب is the فاعل, مال is the مفعول به, مضاربة this is the تمييز, ولم يأذن له رب المال في ذلك لم يضمن بالدفع ولا بتصرف المضارب الثاني حتى يربح. So جار. فإذا ربح ضامن المضارب الأول المال مفعول به لرب المال وإذا دفع إليه المال مضاربة مضاربة بالنصف جار مجرور وأذن له أن يدفعه مضاربة تمييز فدفعه بالثلث جاز فإن كان رب المال قال له على أن ما رازق الله بيننا نصفان فلرب المال نصف الربح. This is going to be the مبتدأ مؤخر. وللمضارب الثاني ثلث الربح وللمضارب الأول سدس. Now this masala was actually going to go on, but it was going to become so long, like I don't know how many, 20 lines or so. So I just thought, you know what, I don't want to make it too long. Right, so let's try to explain this then. Straightforward masail. Right, so now remember, this guy is the mudarib, right? So he's the entrepreneur, and the other guy over here, this guy is considered to be what we call the Rabbul Mal. Okay, so Rabb al Mal, he's basically the guy that gives the money, the investor. All right, so he's going to hand over the money to him, and then the mudarib is going to invest. Right, so he's the investor in all of this. The question is that if this guy, this mudarib, remember we talked about this last time, if he was to purchase someone, a person, so you just say he purchased a person, a slave, and this slave was a relative of the Rabbul Mal, right, so he was related to him. Okay, related to him. Then in this case, what is going to happen here? Because remember, he's not allowed to buy. So we said last time, it's going to come from his pocket. If there is profit in the business, so if the business has made profit, so let's say for example he invested £1,000, right? That's how much he invested. So there's £1,000 plus there's a profit that's made, profit that's made, let's say, is £500. Right, £500 profit that's made. So he says, in kana fil mali ribhun, if there is ribh, profit, and he's purchased someone who will become free, فَلَيْسَ لَهُ أَنْ يَشْتَرِيَ, then he does not have the right to purchase. He's not allowed to purchase this guy. So let's delete this then. So this is, right, so let's get this out of the way. So he's not allowed to purchase this guy, not allowed at all. What if he does purchase him though? So if he does purchase him, so I'll draw it again. So he purchases him, relative of فَلَيْسَ لَهُ أَنْ يَشْتَرِيَ مَنْ يُعْتَقْ عَلَيْهِ فَإِنِ اشْتَرَاهُمْ ضَمِنَ مَالَ الْمُضَارِّ. Now, okay, so this is if he buys someone who is not his relative. This is if he buys someone who is his own relative. So this masla now, last week was about if he was to buy the Rabbul Mals. This is if his own relative, his own brother or his own father, he purchased him. And now we look at the profit now. How much profit is there in the business? So 500. So in kana fil mali ribhun falaysa lahu. Then the mudarib does not have the right and yashtariya man yu'taq alayhi ala al-mudarib. Right, so his own relative. If he does purchase him, what's going to happen? So he says in ishtarahum, if he was to ishtara this person who actually is going to get free. Remember, if you're not sure about this masala, watch last week's. ضَمِنَ مَالَ الْمُضَارَبَةِ, he has to pay compensation. No, because this slave now has gone free, right? So whatever amount of money is in that business, he's going to have to compensate now. So let's say, for example, this slave actually cost 1,500. Yeah, 1,500. All right, cost 1,500. So what's going to happen? Obviously, all that money's gone now. So he's paid 1,500 for this slave. Money has all gone. So now he has to pay from his own pocket. He's got to pay from his own pocket 1,500 daman, compensation. All right, so compensation from his own pocket. Does that make sense? Okay, that's scenario number one. If there is profit. What if there is no profit? So this is number two, no profit. All right, so no profit. So if there's no profit, that means there is only £1,000, let's say. And that is the original capital that was invested. Only that, no profit at all besides that. And he's bought his brother or he's bought his dad, purchased him. So he says, in lam yakun, if there is not in the wealth ribhun, so there's no rib here, only the capital, jaza and yashtariyahum, is permissible for him to buy them. But what's going to happen in this case? Because remember, he's bought it technically with the money of the Rabbul Mal. So he says, فَإِنْ زَادَتْ قِيمَتُهُمْ أَتَقَ نَصِيبُهُ مِنْهُمْ وَلَمْ يَضْمَنْ لِرَبِّ الْمَالِ شَيْئًا. Okay, so if the value of this slave is more, the value of the slave is more than the amount that he actually has. So let's try to explain this in an easy way. So let's say there's £1,000 in this year. Now he's purchased the slave. This is the slave. Right, that slave is his brother. Now the slave doesn't go free simply because the value of the slave, we look at the value of the slave. So if the value of the slave is within 1,000, that means it's purchased on behalf of the Rabbul Mal, and the Rabbul Mal can actually purchase the slave that belongs. That is someone else's relative, doesn't matter. If it's his own relative, then there's a problem. So now what happens in this case is, what if the value of the slave is actually more? What if the value of the slave is 1,500, right? And he's obviously 500, he's a debt, and that debt is going to be upon him as well. So because there's 500 in there, that means whatever shares they had decided to distribute. So let's say, for example, it was a profit of 50-50. So that means 1,000 is the Ra'sul Mal, and then 500 is the profit, and then in that 500, 50-50. So that's 250, 250. So that means now the slave will actually, his share of the slave will go free now. So if his share, £250 of this slave will actually go free. How much is left now? So 1,250 is left. So the slave now is going to have to go and work and earn 1,250 and pay off to the Rabbul Mal. That's called istis'a. Yeah. So we basically look at the what is the profit, what is the Ra'sul Mal, that's the Ra'sul Mal. What's the profit? What's the value of the slave on top of there's no profit yet. And then we have to split each of these, right? Because that's for each person. And so that means 250 pounds worth of the slave actually comes from this guy. So because he got freed, he's kind of partially responsible for that. So this is why he says, فَإِنْ زَادَتْ قِيمَتُهُ, if the qima of the slave, أَتَقَ نَصِيبُهُ, so the share of this mudarib will go free. And if that much goes free, that means all of it goes free. وَلَمْ يَضْمَنْ لِرَبِّ الْمَالِ شَيْئًا, so he himself doesn't pay a penny. What happens is the slave, وَيَسْعَى, the slave, the mu'taq, the freed slave, has to now work لِرَبِّ الْمَالِ, to make up that 1,250. فِي قِيمَةِ نَصِيبِهِ مِنْهُ, so his share. Does that make sense? Now, I know this chapter can seem a bit strange, especially the masail in regards to slaves. When we get to the chapter of slaves, it's going to all become clear. Then I'll say to you, remember those masail that we done before? Well, this is how it works, right? So this is something you have to remember. When you partially free a slave, it actually all goes free. And because this slave has gone free, Rabbul Mal is going to lose out on £1,250. So how do we now get him that money back? So we're not going to get it from the mudarib because it wasn't technically his fault. We're going to get it from the slave. We're going to tell the slave, you're free now, but you have to work. You got a debt to pay off. 1,250 goes back to that guy. Make sense? Inshallah. Okay, next. وَإِذَا دَفَعَ الْمُضَارِبْ الْمَالُ مُضَارَبَةً. Okay, this is now a long masala which is going to continue into next lesson as well. Right? So this is the one I was talking about. It's long, so we'll do as much as we can here, and then next lesson we'll continue it. So this guy is the Rabbul Mal. Alright. He has given this guy, this is the Mudarib, so let's paint him a different color. This is the Mudarib, let's call him M Mudarib number 1. And then this guy has another Mudarib. He's been given permission by the Rabbul Mal that you can have Mudarib. We're going to call him Mudarib 2. Right? So the original guy, this guy, has actually permitted the Mudarib 1 to get himself an entrepreneur. Right? So you can, remember we said last time, it's allowed as long as the Rabbul Mal gives permission. So he says, إِذَا دَفَعَ الْمُضَارِبُ الْمَالَ مُضَارَبَةً. When the Mudarib, we're talking about this guy, number 1, has handed over the wealth to another person, وَلَمْ يَأْذَنْ لَهُ رَبُّ الْمَالِ فِي ذَلِكَ. Now, there's two options. Either the Rabbul Mal has given permission for this to happen. In this case, he has given permission, like we said. So there is permission. Okay. Or there's no permission. Right? So either yes or no permission. Permission or no permission. If there is no permission, what happens in this case? So he says, لَمْ يَضْمَنْ بِالدَّفْعِ. The M1, the Mudarib Awwal, does not have to pay a penny back to the Rabbul Mal until the second guy makes money. Right? So Lam Yazman, Mudarib Awwal, does not have to give any compensation by simply handing over to this guy, nor by dealing, nor by the second guy dealing in that money. He only has to become, so this guy, let's write it down. So this guy now has to compensate if there is profit. Okay, some profit is made. So let's say, for example, he hands over £1,000. He's given that £1,000, right, without any permission. He's given it over to this guy, right? So no permission. So now what's happened is he's invested that money. So let's say on Monday he invested it. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday he made a profit. This is the day he gets a profit. So that means all these days he will not be held responsible for it. Right? He will only be held responsible on Friday. That's when the profits are made. Okay, so that's when the courts will make him compensate if any losses are incurred. Does that make sense? So then he says, حتى يربح. Right, so حتى يربح. فإذا ربح, when he makes a profit, so when M2 makes a profit, on Friday he made a profit, المضارب الأول فإذا ربح ضمن المضارب الأول المال لرب المال. The Mudarib al-Awwal on Friday now has to compensate now. right? It was on Friday that compensation is due, right? Okay. Now, what if he actually gives permission for this, right? So it's possible that he might, give him permission and say, you know what, I want you to invest this money. So let's see if we can. Okay, actually, you know what I'll do? I will get rid of this, and I will put over here this. So this is now permission. All right. So permission is given. Okay, permission. So what happens if permission is given? So he says, إذا دفع إليه المال مضاربة بالنسبة. Yeah. So this Rabbul Mal now, he's actually said, right, so I'll draw him again. Right, so I want half profits. The deal is half profits. Right, so this is M1 and this is Rabbul Mal. Okay, so Rabbul Mal, I want half profits. So he says, وَإِذَا دَفَعَ إِلَيْهِ الْمَالِ مُضَارَبَةً. This guy's handed over the £1,000 and he wants half, okay? وَأَذِنَ لَهُ أَنْ يَدْفَعَهُ مُضَارَبَةً. And he's permitted him to hand it over to another person. Right, so this guy over here, this is M2. Right, so it's allowed now. Tick. فَدَفَعَهُ. So he says, فَدَفَعَهُ بِالثُّلُثِ. So this guy now has handed it over to this guy. On whatever we make, you're going to get a third. 1/3. So he's made an agreement with him of a third. Does that make sense? Jaza, this is also allowed. Now the question is, how does all that work then? So for example, let's say he's given 1,000, right? He wants half. Whatever is made on top of 1,000, he wants half of it. So let's say this guy makes 2,000. Yeah. So what's going to happen is, let's do a nice number. Let's do 3,000. 3,000 seems nice. 3,000, yeah? No, 2,000. How much do you do? Okay. 2,500. That's a nice number. So half of that is going to go to. So there's 1,000 there, which was his originally. The profit on top of that is how much? Is 1,500. So half of that will now go to the Rabbul Mal. So he's going to get half of that. Right? So from there, we're going to give half. So let's give 750. 750 of that is his now. Yeah? So he's going to have 750. The rest of the 750, right? What's going to happen over here? So whatever profit is made, 1/3 of this is going to go to this guy. Say 1/3. So what's 1/3 of 1,500? 1/3 of that is 5, yeah? So 500 is going to go to this guy. Yeah, so 500 to this guy. So 500 to him, 750 to him, and whatever's left, the M1's going to get it. So how much of that is, who's good at maths? Is it 250? Yeah, I think 250. So this guy basically gets 250. Make sense? So these are the profits, okay? That's profit, it's going to go to him. That's profit that he gets, that's profit that he gets. Because that was the deal made, wasn't it? Okay, so now he says, فَإِنْ كَانَ رَبُّ الْمَالِ. So let's. إِنْ كَانَ رَبُّ الْمَالِ قَالَ لَهُ عَلَىٰ أَنَّ مَا رَزَقَ اللَّهُ بَيْنَنَا نِصْفَانِ. Whatever Allah gives, meaning whatever Allah gives, the sum of that, we're going to split it half-half. In that case, فَلِرَبِّ الْمَالِ نِصْفُ الرِّبْحِ. The Rabbul Mal will get half of whatever was agreed upon, like in this case. وَلِلْمُضَارِبِ الثَّانِي الثُّلُثِ. And the Mudarib is going to get a third, because that was agreed, isn't it? Yeah, thuluth. وَلِلْمُضَارِبِ الْأَوْلَ السُّدُسِ. And he gets 1/6. Yeah, so that 250 would be 1/6 of that. Does that make sense? So if I make it into portions, it's going to be easy to understand. So let's say, for example, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This was the profit. Okay, let's say this was the profit. 600 was the profit. So half of that is going to go to the Rabbul Mal. All right, so 1, 2, 3. That's going to go to Rabbul Mal. And a third of that is going to go to this guy, the Mudarib Thani. 1, 2. That's a third. And then whatever's left, that's 1/6. Does that make sense? So if I write the numbers in here, it'll make more sense. So these two is 1/3. This is 1/6. And all that is half. Just keep that in mind because the next lesson, we're going to build on this. All right? Make all sense? Yeah, so watch the video again. Try to understand all of this. Inshallah, it's going to make sense to you, right? It's all just simply just maths. That's what it is. Very easy maths. So the Rabbul Mal, he's the one that has stipulated he wants half. These two amongst themselves have stipulated that he's going to get 1/3, right? And then whatever's left, this guy in the middle is going to get. Now, it might not work out all the time. It might actually be in loss, like we're going to find out next lesson, inshallah. All right, so finished. Let's have a look at some questions then that I can ask you guys. You ready for this? Okay. So first question. If there is profit in the business, can the Mudarib buy someone who goes free upon himself? No, he's not allowed to. Okay, fine, that's good. If there is no profit in the business, can he buy someone that will go free? Yes, he can, so long as its value does not exceed. If the value does exceed the profit, then whatever portion that he has, that will go free of the slave. And then the rest of it, the slave has to make up the money and give it to the Rabbul Mal because the business is now bust now. All the money's gone. Okay, next question. If the Mudarib was to hand over, if the Rabbul Mal was to hand over wealth to the Mudarib and say, I want you to do business in this and I don't permit you to give it to someone else to invest. What if he does invest it and gives it to someone else? What will happen? So he will not be responsible until profit is made. Okay. What if he hands it over and the Rabbul Mal says, I give you permission to hand it over to someone else to invest? Then what? Then in that case, it's going to be according to the amount that they agreed upon. So give us an example. So example could be that the Rabbul Mal said that I want half of whatever's made. And the Mudarib Thani says I want 1/3 of whatever's made. In that case, if that's the case, this is one scenario, and like we said, next lesson we're going to talk about more, then we split it like this. Khalas. Everyone understand this? Jazakallah khair for watching this video, guys. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Thank you to all my patrons who support my channel on a monthly basis. It means so much to me. It allows me to make these videos as well. I make loads of dua for them as well. If anyone out there wants to become a patron, support my channel, please consider it. It's very, very helpful to me because it assists me in being able to make these videos. Check out the description below. Details are there, or you can contact me as well, inshallah. I will see you guys next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.